Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig's Sports System MLB DFS Core Pick Video Core Pick live stream for today, Thursday, July 27th. It's going to be a very small slate today, a 3-game main slate in total. But if you haven't joined me before, this is the format that I'm going to go through. We'll do a recap of yesterday's picks, see how they turned out. Go over to RotoWire, talk about the weather report for today. Shouldn't be too much to talk about there since there's only 3 games. Since it's only a 3-game state, we'll not be doing the traditional core picks. Just kind of go through each position, break it down, talk about it a little bit in general, and then we'll go over to the top GPP teams to stack. Might actually do that first, which is something I usually do a little bit on these smaller slates just in general, but kind of breaking it down. Should be a pretty interesting slate, one good one to mix and match once again for this week overall. But in terms of the core picks that we did have for yesterday, at pitcher went with Framber Valdez at $10,300. Unfortunately, that did not end up very well. It was his worst start of the season. Really his only true bad start of the season. Got to -4 points yesterday, 3.3 2/3 innings, 8 hits, 6 earned runs, only 1 strikeout, and 2 walks yesterday. So it was just unfortunate. Had not had a bad start versus Texas in his 5 most recent starts. And just really unfortunate yesterday. So you're going to have that sometimes. It's part of the nature of the beast. Anything can happen in baseball on any day. Then first base, we had Jose Abreu as kind of our paydown option at $2,600. Got to 0 points. He was 0 for 4 yesterday. He had some pretty good history versus Andrew Heaney in the past, so I was taking an upside on that. Wasn't like a guy that you had to play like in a cash game or anything else like that, but a strong GPP play, in my opinion, early on in the day. Then at second base, we had Gleyber Torres at $3,000. Only got 3 points. He was 1 for 4 yesterday. Did extend his hitting streak, but wasn't anybody that really helped our lineups yesterday. And then in the outfield, we had Ian Happ at $3,000. Got to 31.4 points. He ended up hitting a home run yesterday. Pretty solid, strong all-around day. He ended up being the top overall outfielder on yesterday's slate. And then initially, early on in the day, I had Mauricio Dubon, second base / shortstop / outfield in my core pick. Excuse me. Jose Altuve ultimately did end up returning yesterday, and Dubon did not end up starting. So we ended up on Kyle Tucker. He was $4,000, got to 9.2 points. So did give him a push. Wasn't anybody that really helped us, not anybody that really killed us at the same time. So really hit or miss day yesterday. Kind of unfortunate there. Even with these 5 core picks, my main line that I ran out still was able to cash yesterday. So hopefully you guys had some good luck there. Hopefully you had a little bit different exposure to pitcher wise as well. Besides Framber Valdez, obviously Spencer Strider was up there at the top. Was just trying to save a little bit of money there with a guy that looked like a pretty safe option. Just unfortunately ended up with his worst start of the season and worst start versus Texas in the past 2 seasons and past like 5-6 starts versus them. So that's kind of how it went yesterday. We're going to stop sharing the screen. We'll go over to RotoWire and talk about that weather report for today overall. So let me get that pulled up here real quickly. I'm going to close out of this little ad thing that popped up on the side here. And just in general, it's a really small slate for baseball today. There's 3 games on the main slate. We got a doubleheader prior to that with the Los Angeles Angels and Detroit Tigers, since they did ultimately end up getting postponed yesterday due to weather. So we are just going to talk about our 3 games here. So we have the Washington Nationals, New York Mets, 33% chance of rain in New York, but pretty warm out there at 89 degrees either way. So we'll keep an eye on that one throughout the day, but nothing major there at this point in time. We got 8% chance in St. Louis between the Cardinals and the Cubs. And then in Chicago for the White Sox, 0% chance of rain with the White Sox and the Guardians. So really the New York one's going to be the one that we have the biggest eye on today. If anything does majorly change with any of these games, though, we'll leave it down in the comments below. So the pretty short, sweet to the point today in terms of weather. So we're going to get off of here. We're going to go over to FanDuel and talk a little bit position by position overall. So I'm going to bring that up here as we're speaking. I don't think I pulled up a contest, so give me a second while we get into one. Just doesn't really matter which one we get into because we're just going to talk position by position overall today. So we're just going to click on this quarter one real quick and we'll get it brought up. Obviously 3 games, there's only 6 pitchers, there's only 6 guys starting at each position in general today. So going to be a good day to mix and match, going to be a day to get a little bit creative, but at the same time could be some value there as well. So pitchers loading here as we are speaking. I know at the top is Kodai Sengai at $10,600. Pitched against Washington earlier this year. It was an okay start. I think it was only 5 innings, gave up like 2 runs. So he's definitely in play. There's no true standout pitcher today. I'll say that as we get started. Justin Steele would be probably my favorite at $10,000. He had 2 strong starts for St. Louis so far this season. And then last year he had 25 points versus them. So a little bit of hit or miss history there, but he probably be the strongest play that I want to get to. Him and Dylan Cease are going to be the top two. Dylan Cease, a little bit of hit or miss versus Cleveland, though, but had some pretty strong performances there. And then we got Tanner Bybee going against the Chicago White Sox. He's never pitched against them before. Obviously, he had a pretty strong start to his rookie season so far, so he's definitely in play as well. As we move down, Josiah Gray is completely hit or miss because hasn't been the greatest versus the Mets, but earlier this year he did put up a 55-point performance against them. He's pitched pretty well this year so far, kind of limited some of the issues that he's had in the past. So he's in play. He was kind of my low-end option for the cheat sheet today. And then we have Miles Mikolas at the bottom, $7,800. Really kind of been hit or miss versus the Cubs. I kind of do like the Cubs hitters versus him today. So he probably be my least favorite. I'm probably playing the most of Justin Steele, and then probably a little bit of Dylan Cease and Josiah Gray behind him, maybe a little bit of Kodai Senga here and there. And then maybe just a little bit of Tanner Bybee too. Although the White Sox bats have kind of came to life as of late. So that's kind of where we're at in terms of pitchers. In terms of first base, we got Cody Bellinger here at $4,200. You can definitely play him. Not too much history there versus Mikolas, though, so that is something to consider. Paul Goldschmidt's been hitting the ball extremely well as of late, so if you're not starting Justin Steele in one of your lineups, definitely consider putting Paul Goldschmidt in there. He's had decent history versus Steele in the past as well. And then we got Pete Alonso, 3 for 9 with 1 home run in his career versus Josiah Gray. Obviously, he's been starting to heat up a little bit more as of late, so I do like Pete Alonso. I do like this Mets team kind of in general as a stack for today. So that's kind of it. Josh Naylor's been all right versus Dylan Cease. If you want to go there, $3,500, a little bit more than I like to pay for him. Francisco Alvarez, if he gets started at $3,100, has some power potential as well. Andrew Vaughn, I did ultimately end up putting in as kind of my mid-range guy today at $2,900. Just kind of seems like a safe play. More than anything, he's a little bit banged up at this point in time, though. Brendan Donovan, he ultimately ended up being kind of my middle price guy for second base. He's just going to be an interesting player today because he does fill in a lot of different spots. But, if you're building out some Justin Steele lineups, probably not getting to too much of him. Kyber Ruiz, probably not getting to today. Josh Bell, a little bit of decent history there versus Dylan Cease in the past. Joey Meneses, not really much history there versus Kodai Senga. Wilson Contreras, it's a revenge spot if you want to go with that whole narrative versus Chicago Cubs. If you're going in a contrarian stack against Justin Steele, he would make some sense to fill in there. Yan Gomes, if he gets the start, he's there, but not really trying to pay $2,600 for him. Not too much else here. If you want to sneak Mark Canha in a Met stack, you could do that. Let's see what else we got here. Not too much else here. Vogelbach, sneaking him in as a cheap Met stack, cheap kind of fun play. Same thing with Yasmani Grandal if you're playing a White Sox stack. So nothing too crazy here. I will say Gabriel Arias does have a home run in like 3 for 5 versus Dylan Cease. So if he ends up getting the start today, he's an interesting piece at $2,100. And he's eligible at first base, third base, and shortstop. So that is kind of key on some of these smaller slates just in general. Going over to second base, Christopher Morel, another guy that's eligible at multiple positions, outfield, third base, and second base. I believe he's 3 for 10 versus Mikolas in his career, so not bad history there. So if you want to play him, if you want to throw him in one of your Cub stacks, makes some sense. Nico Horner's been really hot as of late, so $3,600, second base, shortstop eligibility. Probably a guy that I'm getting to a good chunk today. He really paid off in my lineup yesterday. Nolan Gorman probably not starting against the lefty. Obviously, Brendan Donovan we talked about already. Andres Gimenez, if you want to throw him in there as kind of just a one-off, or if you're going in a Cleveland stack against Dylan Cease, maybe makes some sense there. Could be pretty interesting to see how this all shakes out, especially now that they have traded Ahmed Rosario away. It'll be interesting to see what their lineup looks like. Luis Garcia probably not getting to. Jeff McNeil, pretty decent history versus Josiah Gray, so he's probably gotten into quite a bit at second base today. You can also throw him in the outfield. Not really getting to Miles Mastrobuoni for the Cubs. If you really want a cheap stack guy that he doesn't even have multi-positional versatility today. For a guy that's played a lot of positions this year, you'd hope that he'd have some versatility, and really on a slate like that, that's something you're looking for. Tyler Freeman, if he ultimately ends up getting the start, he could be pretty interested in second base, third base eligibility. Tougher matchup versus Dylan Cease, though. And then not too much else here. Obviously we could have random people start throughout the day, and then we could open up some different value, but we'll have those starting lineups down in the comments throughout the day and make notes if there's anything major that way. Jose Ramirez, $3,900, pretty much at the top of the food chain there. Not really trying to get to too much of him today. Nolan Arenado, 4 for 14 versus Justin Steele. If you're building that kind of anti-Steele contrarian Cubs stack today, Heimer Candelario, could be in play today. He's a guy that is very much rumored in trades. So there is always the chance that he gets traded. Just keep an eye on for that throughout the day. Not really trying to get to Jake Berger today at $2,900. More of a guy that I get to against left-handed pitching. If Patrick Wisdom does end up starting, he does at least have a home run versus Mikolas, guy that can play third base and outfield on FanDuel for today, so could have some value in that regard. Brett Beatty's cheap, but really hasn't done too much lately. Just kind of a contrarian guy in a Mets stack if you want to go that way. Yohan Moncada at $2,300. He's been back for 2 games now. Really hasn't done much, but he's super cheap, so he is somebody to consider. Obviously, we talked a little bit about Tyler Freeman before, and we talked a little bit about Arias, but there's not too much else here at this point in time. We're going to get over to shortstop. Francisco Lindor, I would consider in play. Not a long list of history there for him versus Josiah Gray, but in a Mets stack could make a lot of sense. Dansby Swanson has pretty good history versus Miles Mikolas, so in a Cub stack, he's going to make a lot of sense once again. CJ Abrams, he's been hitting the ball pretty well as of late. $3,200, a little bit of an uptick in price tag for him, but you had that with the 3-game slate in general. Tim Anderson's really started to turn it around as of late, so $2,600 could make a lot of sense, especially in your White Sox stacks or even as a one-of. And, in terms of shortstop, there ain't that much out there today. Probably going to play a lot of Tim Anderson. Probably going to play a lot of Dansby Swanson. Maybe even some Nico Horner if I'm playing somebody else at second base. A little bit of Francisco Lindor and Mets stacks. But, a good handful of guys to get there. If you really want to play Paul DeJong, if he ends up starting in that kind of Cardinals contrarian stack, you could do that as well. Moving over to the outfield, we talked about Cody Bellinger a little bit already. Luis Robert, if you're building out your White Sox stacks, makes some sense there. Going against Bybee, there's no history, though. Talked about Morel already. Lane Thomas, 1-for-1 versus Kodai Senga, and also has a walk versus him in his career. So a little bit of history there, but he's been hitting the ball pretty well, so I would consider him in play, although $3,700, quite a big price tag at this point in time. Brandon Nimmo, 4-for-8 in his career versus Josiah Gray. Makes some sense there, especially in your Mets stacks. Eloy Jimenez, like taking some shots on him. Stephen Kwan, probably not getting to today. Ian Happ, decent history versus Miles Mikolas, so probably get to him once again. Obviously, he did hit that high-end upside yesterday. Mike Tauchman, if he ends up starting, if you really want to throw him in your Cub stack, you could. Probably a lower ownership guy as compared to some other ones. Same thing with, say, Suzuki. Tommy Pham, really hasn't done too much lately. He had a little bit of injury there, so not really trying to get to him, but maybe a contrarian option in a Mets stack. Jordan Walker, you could play 2-for-5 in his career versus Justin Steele if you want to go that contrarian Cardinal stack today. Probably not getting to Benintendi. Maybe you get there if you really want to build out that White Sox stack and have him at the top of the lineup, but doesn't offer a high-end upside at this point in time. We already talked about McNeil. Probably not getting Alex Call. Dylan Carlson, if you want to get him in one of those Cardinal stacks, makes a little bit of sense there. And then we just keep moving down. We talked about Mark Canha already. Miles Straw, not really getting to. Will Brendan, probably not getting to. Tyler O'Neill, if you are building out a Cardinal stack contrarian guy or even a cheap one-off, $2,300, has good history in the past versus Justin Steele. I think it was 2-for-6 with a home run, so could be in play. And then you got a couple other cheap guys down here. Corey Dickerson, if he starts. Oscar Colas, if he ends up starting. So a couple different options there on the low end as well, but going to be a pretty interesting slate in general today. If you guys have any specific questions whatsoever, if you want to drop them during the live stream, feel free to do so. Otherwise, if you are watching on replay or after the stream is over, be sure to leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Like I said, I'll have those weather updates and the starting lineups down there as well. And then we're just going to get over to the bottom half of that cheat sheet at this point in time, talk about the top GPP teams that I do have to stack for today overall. So once again, this cheat sheet is 100% free. It's up on Facebook. It's up on Twitter. It's up on the YouTube community tab. So it's a good resource as you're building out your lineups. Obviously today, with it being a little bit smaller slate, hold on here. Let me bring this back up. Sorry about that. I had to reload that page because it's trying to take me back to a cheat sheet from May, which for some reason. So I don't think we're too interested in a cheat sheet from 2 months ago. But this is kind of what we have for today. I'll just go right off it too. The teams that I do have to stack today are going to be the Cubs versus Miles Mikolas. Some pretty decent history there. The White Sox versus Tanner Bybee, there is no history whatsoever there. And then last but not least was the Mets versus Josiah Gray, which they have pretty good history, especially Pete Alonso, Jeff McNeil, Brandon Nimmo. Those would be the three big ones for the Mets. If you want to throw Francisco Lindor or somebody else in there, makes some sense. For the Cubs, there was a lot of guys that have good history versus Miles Mikolas, Ian Happ, Patrick Wisdom, Christopher Morel, Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner. Those would be kind of the ones that I'd be targeting the most today. But obviously, you're going to mix and match quite a bit today, try to find some value. Obviously, it's going to be harder to play ownership today just because there's only 3 games. So kind of go with the guys that you have good feelings for, plus the good history in the past, good recent history, all that. And hopefully you build some winning lineups for today overall. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I do have at this point in time. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed. Obviously, these smaller sites are a little bit more interesting to talk about, but it does give us the opportunity to talk about them more in depth. So that's what I have at this point in time. Also, be sure to let me know your favorite play on today's slate. Probably somebody we talked about at some point during the stream, since talked about a little bit of everyone today, just in general. But with that being said, if you are brand new to my channel, checking out for the very first time or have yet to do so, also be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a beat in terms of content. But I would definitely appreciate that. It does mean a lot to me and helps to build the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, it's mainly MLB DFS. We got CFL DFS going on at the same time. That video will be out later today since the first game is Friday this week. So definitely be sure to check that out if that's something you're into. That's over on the DraftKings side. But with that being said, definitely do appreciate each and every one of you tuning in to today's video, to today's live stream. Definitely means a lot to me. Hopefully each and every one of you have a great rest of your day and some pretty good luck in MLB DFS tonight.